Welcome. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at a life that, well, while it was brief, it was spent almost entirely in the public eye.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at the life and the enduring imprint of American child actor Sawyer Storm Sweeten.
And his story is, it's so tightly linked to one of the biggest sitcoms of the late 90s and early 2000s. Everybody Loves Raymond.
Inextricably linked, really.
That's right. And for this exploration, it's important to state up front that we are sticking strictly to the facts presented in our compiled source material.
Okay.
So this material gives us the biographical framework of his life, the specifics of his career, the very tragic circumstances around his death, and then the really powerful public response from the colleagues who watched him grow up on set.
In Sawyer Sweeten's life, it spanned a really specific timeline, May 12, 1995, all the way to April 23, 2015.
19 years.
Just 19 years. It's a trajectory marked by this immediate, really intense professional life as a child.
It is.
And we absolutely recognize the profound sadness that shadows this material. Our commitment here is to an impartial, a factual, and a deeply respectful presentation of the documented information.
Exactly. Our goal in this study is to meticulously explore what we have, focusing on how the facts of Sweeten's early life and the architecture of his acting career led to his public identity.
And we'll also spend a good amount of time analyzing those heartfelt statements from the people who knew him best in that professional world.
Yeah, they're very telling.
So let's begin with the earliest documented facts of his life, where everything started.
Okay.
Sawyer Storm Sweeten was born on May 12, 1995, in a place called Brownwood, Texas. And when we look at the immediate family he was born into, you can already see the seeds of his future career.
You really can. His parents were Timothy Sweeten and Elizabeth Millsap.
Mhm.
And the family context is it's crucial here because it directly informed how he was cast. Well, the sources highlight his siblings. He had two sisters, Madeline and Mesa, and then the defining factor for his career, really, an identical twin brother named Sullivan.
An identical twin.
Yes. And the presence of not just siblings, but twins provided this unique opportunity that Hollywood, it rarely ignores something like that.
That specific dynamic, Madeline, the oldest sister, and then Sawyer and Sullivan, the twins, that's the nexus point for their entire shared professional life.
It is.
And the sources document a path to a major Hollywood role that was just incredibly accelerated. This wasn't a family that spent years going to auditions.
No, not at all. It seems like the move to California was followed almost instantly by this massive success.
So what was that time frame exactly? It seems almost unbelievable.
It's astonishing, really. The sources confirm that the Sweeten family relocated to California when the twin boys, Sawyer and Sullivan, were only 6 months old.
6 months old.
Just 6 months. I mean, think about that. That's a huge life-altering move across the country with infants. And the professional reward for that move was secured before they were even old enough to walk or talk consistently.
It really speaks to this almost predestined feeling about their casting.
It does.
So less than a year after that move, the sources confirm all three of the acting siblings were cast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, securing a role on a major network television show before you even turn 1 year old, that has to be an extremely rare thing.
It's incredibly rare, even for twins who are, often highly sought after in the industry for production reasons.
Right, because of labor laws. You can have one twin on set while the other rests.
Exactly. But it's the swiftness here that's the first key insight. The siblings, Madeline, Sawyer, and Sullivan, all got roles on the CBS sitcom Everybody Loves Raymond.
And not just any show.
Not at all. This was a hugely popular show, and this wasn't some short-run series. They would go on to star for the entire 9 seasons it was on the air. So this single job, this one professional engagement, it defined their existence for a decade, roughly from the age of 1 to 10.
So their childhood development, how they learned, how they socialized,
Yeah,
it was all intrinsically linked to the environment of a professional TV set.
absolutely. Their formative years weren't just structured. They were structured by the demands of a high-stakes, primetime network schedule.
It's one thing to be a child actor for a little while, for a movie or something.
Right.
But to be a recurring cast member for 9 continuous years, that creates a completely different developmental reality. They essentially knew no other way of life during their childhood,
And you have to think, the choice to cast real-life siblings, and specifically identical twins, it created a really realistic and stable on-screen family dynamic.
which probably contributed to the show's success and its relatability.
I think so. But for the children, it meant their shared reality, their family structure, was basically replicated and even intensified inside their professional structure. Their primary adult relationships outside of their parents were with the core cast and crew of Raymond.
The people playing their parents, their grandparents, their uncle.
Exactly.
So then, in 2005, the series ends. This massive structure in their young lives just disappears. What do the sources tell us about the connection between Sawyer and his twin brother, Sullivan, as they moved out of the public eye and into their teenage years?
The documentation we have points to the enduring strength of that bond they shared.
Which makes sense.
It does. The sources mention a very specific detail about their later life. Sawyer and his identical twin brother, Sullivan, owned a house together in Riverside, California.
And you see that as being particularly insightful.
I do, yes. I mean, many siblings are close and stay close. But after such an intense, shared, and frankly unusual childhood, the choice to continue sharing a home into their late teens and early adulthood suggests something more than just simple closeness.
Right. It suggests a necessary continuity, maybe. A shared understanding that perhaps only the two of them could ever fully comprehend.
Exactly. The experience of growing up as identical twin child stars, constantly working together, it creates this kind of unique shared identity. When that whole environment dissolves, it makes perfect sense that they would maintain the closest constant in their lives, which was each other.
So the shared house suggests they were navigating that transition from a public childhood to a private young adulthood as a single unit.
Relying on that, that unbreakable symbiotic relationship that was forged on the set of Everybody Loves Raymond, it just underscores the point that their lives were, in a fundamental way, inseparable.
It paints a really compelling picture of two brothers who shared not just a birthday and their looks, but an entire career identity that was deeply intertwined. And they carried that singularity forward into a shared independent life, even after the fame was gone.
A very powerful bond.
Okay, so now we should probably turn our attention to the professional substance of Sawyer Sweeten's life. And the sources document this as spanning exactly between 1996 and 2005. This 9-year span is the entirety of his active years as an actor.
That's right. And when we review that period, one role, just it dominates overwhelmingly.
Let's expand on that. His television career and that defining role is Jeffrey Barone.
The role on Everybody Loves Raymond, running from 96 to 2005, was everything. Sawyer played Jeffrey Barone, one of the twin sons, and the critical point here is that he wasn't just a guest star who popped in and out.
No.
He was a core part of the recurring cast for the full 9 seasons of the series.
And to really understand the gravity of that, you have to consider how successful that show was.
It was a cultural phenomenon. It ran for over 210 episodes. That level of continuous, sustained professional employment, especially for a child, is monumental.
It's not just the duration either, but the kind of work it is. Being part of a recurring cast on a CBS sitcom that requires a weekly commitment.
Oh, absolutely. You've got table reads, rehearsals, filming schedules, probably press junkets.
Right.
It's an environment that demands incredible discipline from very, very young children.
And what about the nature of the role itself? Being one of the twins, how did that add complexity to his professional identity?
Yeah. Well, the twin dynamic meant his professional existence was shared and mirrored. He was always Jeffrey, standing right next to his twin, Sullivan, who played Michael.
Right.
Their roles were often, interchangeable in the dialogue, but visually, they were a unit. They were the energetic, often mischievous children of Ray and Deborah. The scripts required them to be a physical, interactive unit.
So the demands on Sawyer were never solitary.
Never. They were always coupled with the demands placed on Sullivan. This had to have amplified the intensity of the whole experience.
And we also have to consider the environment that's created by child labor laws.
Mm-hmm.
While those laws are there to protect young actors, they also add another layer of really rigorous structure to their day. They weren't just showing up to play around.
No, not at all. They were obligated to fulfill educational requirements, which limited their time on set.
So they had tutoring on set.
Precisely. The sources implicitly confirm that for 9 years, Sawyer's environment was this blend of conventional schooling, likely on-set tutoring, and rigorous professional performance. The time spent on location, even with those limits, dominated their schedule from their toddler years all the way through their preteen stage.
Which means his primary relationships during the day were with the adults playing his parents, grandparents, and uncle.
Yes. The adult cast became these sort of surrogate figures, observing and interacting with these children daily as they matured from babies into young boys.
Given how long the series ran, you might expect a child actor with that kind of visibility to have, a long list of other credits, trying to diversify their portfolio.
Right.
But the sources suggest the complete opposite. His focus was almost entirely on Raymond.
That is correct. The sources document only 2 other specific credits during this active period.
Just 2?
Just 2. Which really highlights how demanding that 9-season schedule must have been, or, maybe how focused the family unit was on maintaining stability within that Raymond structure.
So let's detail those 2 other roles, just so we can cover the full scope of his filmography that's in the material. Let's start with the film credit.
Okay, his film credit came in 2002. So that's about halfway through the run of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Right in the middle of it.
Exactly. The film was called Frank McCluskey, CI. He was cast as young Frank McCluskey.
Okay.
And while details about the size of the role are a bit scarce, just securing a feature film role, even a small one, shows he had some visibility and interest outside of the sitcom world at that time.
And then there was a brief guest spot on another popular show, one that was targeted more at a younger audience.
Yes, that was in 2000. He made a guest television appearance on the Disney Channel series Even Stevens.
I remember that show.
Yeah. In an episode titled All About Yvette, he played a character named Milton. And this brief diversification, it shows he was active and known within the industry, but these sporadic roles, they really stand in stark contrast to the continuous, permanent fixture he was on CBS primetime.
So the totality of his professional life is really framed by that one decade, 1996 to 2005.
That's it.
The primary professional identity, the enduring image in the minds of the audience and his colleagues, is undeniably Jeffrey Barone. His life for 10 years was spent defining and embodying that character.
And when the show ended, that constant shared professional structure it vanished entirely.
The transition from that level of sustained work to, anonymity must be profound.
It has to be. At age 10, when Raymond concluded he was done with acting, according to the sources, he stopped being Jeffrey Barone, and he began the very challenging journey of becoming Sawyer Sweeten, a young person trying to define himself outside the shadow of a globally famous TV role he started before he could even form memories.
And the sources give us very little information about those next 9 years.
They don't, which really underscores the privacy he maintained after the show.
That lack of documented professional activity after 2005 is, in itself, a really significant data point. It marks the end of his public life, and it leaves us with this powerful, singular image that's just rooted in his childhood.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We now have to transition to the final documented stage of his life, and we need to examine the facts surrounding his death with the deepest possible respect for the sensitive nature of this topic.
Yes, we must handle this with solemnity and stick to the factual accuracy that's provided in the source material.
Okay.
Sawyer Sweeten died on April 23, 2015.
And the location of this event, according to the documentation.
This occurred in Austin, Texas.
He was still so young.
Yeah.
Barely across the threshold of early adulthood, which just adds another layer of sorrow to this timeline.
He was 19 years old at the time of his death. The sources point out the heartbreaking proximity to a major milestone.
Which was?
He passed away just 19 days before his 20th birthday on May 12th. He was on the very verge of entering his 3rd decade of life.
Regarding the cause of death, the source material is explicitly clear, and we have to relay those painful facts.
The documentation states explicitly that he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head.
This event, it marked a sudden and profoundly shocking tragedy for his family, for his former colleagues, and for the millions of people who still remembered him as that little boy on that time. Everybody loves Raymond.
A complete shock.
Now, when we look at the source material, this tragedy is placed within certain factual classifications. And while these categories are, they're cold and procedural, they do provide some context for the scope of this loss within national statistics.
That's correct. The event is classified in the source material under objective categories like 2015 suicides, suicides by firearm in Texas, and also youth suicides in the United States.
So when reading these classifications, we understand that this wasn't just a personal tragedy.
No. It's one that sadly fits into a larger, very troubling pattern of youth loss. These facts establish the serious nature of the circumstances we are discussing.
And it's the immediate and widespread reaction from his professional community that provides the human counterpoint to these cold facts.
Yes.
His death, because of the high visibility of his childhood role, prompted this outpouring of public emotion, especially from the very adults who had essentially raised him on set for 9 years.
The depth of that reaction, it speaks volumes about the genuine bonds that were formed during that long, long tenure. For 9 seasons, the cast and crew were intimately involved in the daily lives of the Sweeten children.
Day in, day out.
Exactly. So when a tragedy like this happens, the professional distance, it just collapses entirely. And what remains is the shock and grief of a substitute family unit. The tributes were immediate, they were public, and they felt necessary. They reflected the intense impact he had on their lives.
The public response was this stark reminder that even though he'd been out of the spotlight for a decade, the relationship he forged with his co-stars was permanent and deeply personal.
It clearly was.
So let's analyze the specific language and the themes that are present in those public statements, the ones released by his former colleagues.
Okay.
Because these are more than just, standard condolences. They feel like attempts by those closest to him professionally to articulate an unimaginable loss and share their memory of who Sawyer really was.
I agree. They're very personal.
We can start with Ray Romano, the star of the show, and his on-screen father. His response focused heavily on the shock of the situation and the core personality traits he remembered.
Romano's statement articulated that immediate emotional impact. He said he was shocked by the news. And his description of Sweeten focused on his demeanor, calling him a wonderful and sweet kid to be around. It's noteworthy that Romano, the main figure on that set, emphasized warmth and kindness.
Right. It suggests that despite the rigorous schedule and all the pressures of being on a hit show, Sawyer maintained this gentle and approachable presence.
That emphasis on sweet and wonderful, it suggests a quiet, positive influence on set. It's not the demanding or difficult child star stereotype you sometimes hear about.
Not at all.
It reflects a positive disposition that he maintained throughout his entire childhood career.
Now, moving to his on-screen mother, Patricia Heaton, her tribute offered a different but equally powerful view of his character.
It did. Patricia Heaton's tribute used words that pointed toward his intelligence and his potential, combined with this profound sense of prematurity regarding his loss.
What were her specific words?
She described him as a funny and exceptionally bright young man.
Exceptionally bright.
Yes. The inclusion of bright and funny suggests an intellectual curiosity and a personality that went beyond just the performance he gave on camera. And crucially, she ended her sentiment by expressing the pain of his youth, stating explicitly that he is gone from us far too soon.
That line really captures the essence of the tragedy, doesn't it?
Well,
the loss of potential in a young man she had literally watched grow from a baby.
It does.
The consistency in the cast's response is really striking. Brad Garrett, who played Uncle Robert, he focused his comments specifically on the nature of their collective family bond. He underscored the duration of their shared experience.
Garrett's perspective was essential because he directly addressed those blurred lines between their professional and their personal lives.
Right.
He stated unequivocally that the Sweeten family was our family for those 9 years on Raymond. That's a powerful acknowledgement. It says they weren't just actors reading lines. They had a genuine, long-standing familial connection.
And how did he conclude his statement?
He concluded by sending his deepest condolences and love go out to them during this unimaginable time. It highlights the extreme depth of the grief associated with the sudden loss of a member of this extended family.
It provides the necessary context. This was not the loss of a casual acquaintance. It was the loss of a child they had, in a professional sense, effectively co-parented for a decade.
That's a good way of putting it.
Phil Rosenthal, the creator of Everybody Loves Raymond, also weighed in. But he contextualized the tragedy within the frame of his creative vision, seeing the children as a collective unit.
Yes, Rosenthal's tribute was very sentimental and universal. He focused on the 3 siblings, Sawyer, Sullivan, and Madeline, as this constant presence on set. He described them as children that never failed to make us laugh or remind us of how we feel about our own children.
That's revealing.
It is. That statement reveals the emotional function the child actors serve for the production. They grounded the show in reality and provided a constant humanizing element for the adults. Rosenthal's perspective ties their professional contribution directly to their sentimental value.
It's a reminder that every adult on that set was also looking at their own family life through the lens of watching these kids grow up.
Absolutely.
And finally, the response from his real-life sister and co-star, Madeline Sweeten, carried a sense of urgency. Her public statement was less a general condolence and more a direct, actionable appeal to the public.
Yes, Madeline, who shared that unique childhood and professional experience with her brothers. Her statement shifted the focus from remembrance to immediate action.
What was her specific plea?
Her specific, powerful plea was for everyone to reach out to the ones you love. This message, delivered in the immediate aftermath of her brother's tragic death, it speaks to the immense pain of loss and the urgent need for familial and personal connection in the face of suffering.
The uniformity of these tributes, from the stars to the creator to his own sister, it clearly establishes that Sawyer was remembered not just as the character Jeffrey Barone.
No.
He was remembered as a genuinely loved and respected person within that production community. The memory of the sweet kid who was exceptionally bright endured long after the camera stopped rolling.
And we have one final crucial detail provided in the sources regarding the permanent nature of his memory.
Okay, what's that?
4 years after his suicide, specifically on April 24th, 2019, the family dedicated a theater in his name. Yes, and this act of memorialization is significant. It ensures his name and memory are attached not just to a tragic ending, but to a space dedicated to art and creativity. It provides a lasting, tangible tribute to his life and his talent.
That memorialization allows the public memory of him to move beyond the circumstances of his death and connect back to the creative world he inhabited during his most active years.
Exactly. A very thoughtful tribute.
So we have meticulously traced a very specific, intense, and ultimately brief trajectory.
We have. From a baby moving to California and being cast almost instantly, to starring in a hit show for nearly a decade, followed by a sudden withdrawal from public life, and finally to a tragic death that evoked widespread shock among those who worked with him.
The sources, by classifying him using specific professional categories, help us contextualize how unique his experience really was. The material notes him as an American identical twin child actor and also a male actor from Texas.
And that first category, American identical twin child actors, is the most revealing one.
Why do you say that?
It underscores that his career was fundamentally shared. It was inseparable from his twin, Sullivan, and this just amplifies the unusual circumstances of their early lives. They weren't just actors. They were a professional tandem, a symbiotic unit, embodying the Barone twin dynamic for 9 consecutive seasons.
That level of shared, intense spotlight is highly unusual. It meant that his personal and his professional boundaries were established very early, and they were always defined by a partnership.
Right.
And when the show ended, the professional partnership also ended, leaving this vacuum that both brothers had to fill simultaneously as they entered their crucial late teenage years.
And the fact that the source material points out their co-ownership of a house later on, it just emphasizes that shared journey and perhaps codependency persisted long after the spotlight faded.
The entire narrative documented in our sources is one of extreme stability followed by radical change.
That's the perfect way to frame it. The stability was provided by the set of Everybody Loves Raymond, the same people, the same structure, the same job for 9 years.
And the radical change.
The radical change was that abrupt shift at age 10 into a non-famous life, forcing an identity reconstruction outside of the public gaze.
Which means the public memory of him remains permanently tied to that 8-year-old child on television.
Yes, creating a dissonance that often affects those who experience childhood fame.
And the profound depth of the shock expressed by the cast, calling him a wonderful and sweet kid.
Yeah.
It just speaks to the power of those bonds that were forged during that formative decade.
They watched him grow from a toddler into a young man, and their grief was commensurate with that close, sustained observation.
It forces us to synthesize all these documented facts into a larger reflection. The material shows us a child whose entire early development was wrapped up in the identity of Jeffrey Barone.
And when that identity was forcibly retired at age 10, he had to navigate a critical period of his life, adolescence and early adulthood, without the professional structure and public validation that had been his constant normal.
The documented trajectory is a striking case study. It presents a childhood of immediate, sustained, and successful public exposure,
followed by nearly a decade of relative privacy, only for that private life to tragically re-enter the public consciousness due to the circumstances of his death.
Yes.
And that is the ultimate reflection point for you, for our listeners to consider. based on the documented material.
Okay.
Given that the Sweeten siblings were cast less than a year after moving to California and then starred for 9 straight seasons, their public childhood was intense, immediate, and sustained.
So it forces us to ask some difficult questions.
It does. What are the long-term specific implications of having your identity defined by a character for the entirety of your formative years? And what happens when that established world just vanishes abruptly, leaving a young person to construct an entirely new identity without the unique professional framework they've always known?
That is the core environment that the source material documents for Sawyer Sweeten.
It is.
A truly profound set of circumstances to reflect upon. It really underscores the delicate balance between childhood development and sustained public performance. Thank you for joining us for this extensive exploration of the material concerning Sawyer Sweeten's life and legacy.
Thank you for your careful and respectful attention to this grave and complex subject matter.
Thanks for listening.